Hey guys, thanks for checking out another episode of Inside the Mind, a podcast about athletes. Today's guest is former D1 basketball player Akeem Springs. Most recently played for the University of Minnesota. Also spent some time in the G League not too long ago. We talked a bit about, what was his mindset going through some transfers during his college years, as well as, the importance of the mental side of the game. But before I spoil too much, roll the intro. So what were you up to today? Were you training today? What's your training schedule look like?
Trained. So I did some basketball stuff today and just did some of my music stuff today.
Oh yeah. I saw that you kind of getting into that. What's your inspiration to start your music side of things?
Well, I've always written, wrote written. I've always done it. Even when I was at Minnesota, I would drop like little freestyles over beats and stuff like that. So it's been something that's been in my life a long time. But now it's just, I just felt like it was time for me to bring it public because I like my music and it's just another one of my talents. And being a professional athlete, I'm in the entertainment business, so I mean, I might as well do everything. You feel me?
Yeah.
That's around that. So,
I think even stuff like that helps with in Minnesota you were only there for 1 year, I believe, but kind of coming in and showing that you're more than just a basketball player. I would assume that kind of helps, getting that team chemistry up or having that kind of locker room vibe going that translates on the floor and whatnot. Did you find that too kind of helped in that?
Not necessarily my music. The thing that helped us bond at Minnesota was just going through similar struggles and just knowing that everyone had the same goal in mind. I think that's above the off the court things. It was just us being able to relate to similar struggles and to similar goals. And once you really relate and everyone has each other's best interests at heart, I think that's what made that Minnesota team so close and allowed us to have success.
Mm-hmm. I saw that you transferred twice through your college career. What was your motivation for transferring twice? Because usually, I mean, for most college athletes, I feel like they would only transfer maybe one time, but I don't really see it too much where an athlete transfers twice.
For me, for me coming into college, I actually believed that if you're good, they'll find you anywhere. I believed them when they said that. And I didn't really like the bigger schools. They didn't show that they loved me. They were like, I had interest from everyone. Like, I was a sophomore in high school. I was sitting up till 2 a.m. After a Badger game with Bo Ryan, and I went to Northwestern that same year for an elite camp and stuff like that. But I really wanted to be around people that love me, and I felt like I could be good anywhere. But sometimes in this sports thing, when you're humble and you really are just a good person, they will take that as lack, and it's not. So even when I went to Northern, like, I was a gift to Northern, and as we see, as I saw my career panned out, I was too good for Northern Illinois. But when you make a step like that and decide to go, everyone's perception of you changes. And even at Northern, like, the coaches, like, I went into Northern a man. I wasn't a boy. I went into Northern as a man, and they were trying to teach me how to be a man. And so they tried to do some stuff to maybe humble me, but I was a humble person already. But they tried to do some stuff to like teach me lessons. And I'm like, we're here. I take care of my schoolwork. But when it comes to basketball, this is a business, and I understood the business early, so I was willing to leave a college and go find a better fit early. Yeah, I didn't. I never really understood that. I never really understood but I do understand. I can't say that. I do understand. They get a lot of kids from high school that were heavily sheltered and may not know some things. But for me, it's like I'm trying to win games. And at Northern, the thing I was playing at Northern through injury. I had a torn labrum, and my shoulder would actually pop out frequently during the year. But I would just pop it back in and just keep playing. I wore like some slings and stuff around it, but I was playing, and I was actually the leading scorer over the first on the team for the first like however many games, and then they decided like not to start me, and they did some things. They like will put in a walk in before me and things like that. And after a while, it was like, man, like you know what? If y'all don't understand how good I am, I'll be willing to leave. And that was something I was consistent in my career. Even when I was at Minnesota, I knew I should have been a starter at first. And they ended up starting me later in the season, but I knew I should have been a starter at Minnesota. So even then, I was ready to leave Minnesota and go overseas. Because not from a cocky standpoint, it's just like I know the work I put in, and I'm actually here to win. Like we have guys that don't put as much work in as me. They're not better than me, and their lack of work shows that they're not as dedicated to this as I am. So why would you put them in front of me? Um, and so I was ready to leave Minnesota. There's a big thing. Like they're like I tweeted something like my time in Minnesota will be short.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and the media ate that up.
Yeah, yeah. So you kind of had a goal all along that you knew that, maybe your first school in Northern Illinois that you thought that, you had a bigger goal in mind kind of thing. So something like, taking a year off to transfer to Milwaukee to eventually then get to Minnesota, that year off didn't really bother you at that point in time, knowing, what the long-term goal was?
Yeah, and I mean it's funny that you said that because that's actually what I dealt with in the G League also. The G League, I played my first G League season 7 months out of an Achilles injury. I wasn't healthy. I figured everyone knew that I got injured March and didn't have surgery till March 21st. So at the start of the season, I would not be fully healthy. Like I figured that anyone who did their research would know how is he healthy when he just had surgery for a Achilles, you know?
Yeah.
But they brought me in, and I was fortunate to be around the NBA game. But I remember even then, like the coaches called me in. I remember, and I'm super excited for one of the coaches, Coach Jones. He just got I think he's one of the assistants now for Cleveland, but he
Hmm.
was actually one of the G League coaches when I was there. Coach Jones, he's a really good guy, super good guy. Like Cleveland's lucky to have him on their staff. But I remember they wanted to start me, and I came in. I was crying one day, and I'm like, Coach is like, I appreciate you. I appreciate this opportunity, and I appreciate y'all seeing the work and seeing the potential I have. But I'm not ready to play right now. I understood. Like we see like guys like Boogie like that keeps getting hurt.
Yep.
I understood that you have to build your body up, and I thought that they were willing to let me do that, but they weren't. So like the past 2 years in the G League has been me wanting to be around the game and learn as much about the NBA game as possible, but knowing that the first year I was okay with not playing as much. The second year I was not okay with not playing because even the guys they sent down, like I was playing, and then they sent Grayson Allen down because he wasn't doing what they felt he could have been doing with the Jazz. And the kind of player I am, I knew how I worked. I would sit and watch these players, and I knew I was better than guys, so I wasn't with sitting around. I'm about getting better. Like I want to keep getting better. And so even then, after I left Utah this year, I didn't take an overseas gig or anything because I was like, I'm willing to wait because I know my talent and I know what I've been working for. So I'm willing to sit down and wait and fully develop my game. This was like a great time for me to fully heal my body, like make sure everything's hitting on all cylinders and continue to grow as a point guard. So even now, like yes, I was, so to answer your question, yes, I was willing to wait. And at Northern, it wasn't for a bigger goal in mind. It was, you're not playing me. I'm not sitting on the bench at Northern Illinois. We have no fans here. The program is not a winning program. I was the leading scorer with a torn labrum.
Yeah, it's not easy to do.
I'm like, so it's like, and you want to sit me and put a walk in front of me. It's like, I felt disrespected, and so it's like I will leave before I be a cancer to the team, and it's hard for me in situations like that because I'm one of those guys. I'm rooting for everyone, so it's hard for me to compete with my teammates, and it's always been something I've dealt with. Like, if we're in practice and scrimmaging, not like that. But for me to be on a bench, I can't not root for the guys on the court,
Right.
because that's against me. And I'm one of the guys, like, and I say walk on, but at the same time, I'm with the walk ons. I try to coach the walk ons up. So it's like you take away from who I am as a person when you put me in a lesser position. And I knew that. And it was like, before I become a cancer to the team and turn into this guy that's like rooting for my teammate to do bad, I would leave. And that's what it's been with me. That's how I've always been, because one, I do know how hard I work. Two, I know what it takes to be successful. I know what is good. I know what people like. I know what it is. But I've just been the guy that's been super humble and almost to a flaw, because people will perceive that as something outside of just humility.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with admitting or thinking to yourself that you're better than the other guy, but I think it takes a lot of maturity in an athlete to realize that before this becomes a problem in the locker room, let me get myself out of this situation, put myself in a better situation where I can succeed and kind of be happy with myself and showcase my talents the way I want to. So did you have discussions with Milwaukee before you transferred there, kind of what your playing time would look like?
Not necessarily playing time. But it's funny. Both the schools I transferred to, I played them the previous year.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a really good game off the bench versus Milwaukee. I had 21. Milwaukee was actually recruited me before out of high school, but they kind of came in late. So once I was at Northern, I think the first game that they set me, or the second game, the first or second game that they set me or brought me off the bench, and I had 21. And I remember one of the coaches come up to me like, I thought you were going to have 30s. But our coaching staff had this subbing rotation that went strictly off minutes. No matter how good you were playing, once you hit that certain number, you're getting subbed for. And it's like, man, I'm rolling right now. It's like, don't sub for me. And then
Yeah.
So Chad Boudreaux at Milwaukee, I remember him after the game. He's like, I thought you were having 30 tonight. he's like, we're so thankful that your coaches, and we end up losing this game. He was like, we're so thankful that your coaches kept pulling you. So,
says everything right there. Yeah.
Exactly. We lost in overtime by like 1 point, and it's like the coaches kept pulling me. So it's like, man, I don't get it, but like I got it, and I just accepted it, and it was
just there's a right and a wrong way to go about it, and I think that you're really highlighting the right way to go about it. And there's a lot of instances of kids and pro athletes going about it the wrong way. So I think it's really important for athletes out there that you got to kind of look out for yourself, but at the same time, don't hurt the other guys on your team because of something that's going on between you and the coach.
Exactly, and I always knew that. So, Milwaukee, that's how they came. I talked to Coach Jeter, who was the head coach there. Great coach, one of the most winningest coaches in Panther history. And me and him had a good relationship. He ended up becoming one of the coaches at Minnesota. When I left, he's still an assistant at Minnesota now. But he was my head coach. We didn't talk about playing time. We just he just said he wanted me. I never asked the coach about playing time until this last season in the G League. But I never asked the coach about playing time. I just figured, once you guys see who I am, you'll know I'm a starter. I'm just a leader, and it's better for the team if I start, and not from a cocky standpoint, because I'm not the guy. I'm not the guy that's super cocky. Like, I'm the guy and it's funny because scouts are finally going to look at this to see who I am. I'm the guy who has 20 points in the first half and finished the game with 23.
Yeah.
All because I just decided not to shoot in the second half. I'm like, okay, guys, I scored a lot. Like everyone else gets some.
Yeah.
Everyone else, and that's who I was for a long time. And a lot of the scouts are starting to look at that when they look at my points, because when you look at my points in college, one, you have to take into account that I only played really 2 years. Maybe 2.5. I'll give myself 2.5. I've only played like 2.5 years, battling injury, and my first season at Northern wasn't a full season, so I played like 2.5 years. And if you look at my points and everything from that standpoint, you look at me as a player completely different. Completely different, and it was hard to sometimes play in the Horizon because I did know I was a Big Ten guy for a long time.
Yeah.
I grew up in the Midwest, so I knew that's kind of transitioning to me going to Minnesota. I knew I was a Big Ten guy for a long time. I studied those guys. I was a physical guy. I played football growing up, I always knew I was a Big Ten guy. So once I finally got to Minnesota, it was like, okay, well, now I'm finally at the level that I felt like I always should have been. And yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that, I was curious about, I was going to ask is, you kind of mentioned it already, was the different play styles and different conferences, going from the MAC to the Horizon to the Big Ten. Obviously, you mentioned the Big Ten's a bit more of a physical conference. Are the Horizons and MAC, are they, more scoring focused? Is it kind of more finesse? Well, how are they specifically different than the Big Ten?
Honestly, I can't really tell you too much about the MAC. This is what I'll say. Mid-major schools, their guards are able. The better guards in mid-major programs can play with major guards. The bigs is where you usually see the difference. So I'll say that first. So guard play wherever. If you're a good guard, you're a good guard. But the bigs sometimes, like, where at Minnesota we have 7-footers. That's rare in other conferences, So just from that standpoint, but the style of play, I felt Minnesota. Yeah, so when I was in the Horizon, I don't think it goes by conference as much as program, because when I was at Milwaukee, we ran Wisconsin's offense because Coach Jeter. I'm sorry, I'm plugging my charger in.
No worries, yeah.
Because Coach Jeter was a coach under Bo Ryan, so we ran a swing offense. So our style of play was similar to a team in the Big Ten. But the difference for me when I transferred to Minnesota is we were more up and down, and I had more freedom to do some things. In Milwaukee, we ran a swing, so our guards posted, and that's actually good. It was good for me because, again, when scouts go back and they're looking at my film and stuff, now they see that, how Russell post up smaller guards or even like-sized guards. They see that I have a post game now. And it's like, yeah, man, when I tell people, like, I do everything, they go back through my history and they see at Milwaukee, I posted a lot. They ran plays for me to get the ball in the post. I was a slasher, like playmaker kind of guy. I shot well from three, but our bigs were out there shooting three. We had a 7-footer, white boy JJ Panaski, who shot a lot. Our 4-man Matt Tybee, he's actually playing overseas right now. Shot the ball a lot, So it's like you kind of know the players you have, and you just find ways to score. The difference at Minnesota, we had a bunch of guys that were slashing. We didn't have a lot of shooting on that team, so it's like, okay, well, I'll do this. It's like I'll do like I've always been that utility guy. It's like I do everything because I work on everything, so I can do everything. Like what do you want me to do? Me and Pitino talked. He was like, Keem, if you're confident, shoot the ball. I was like, okay. I was like, all right. And he kind of regrets saying that sometimes, but I think overall he knew that was the best thing to tell me because I made some huge shots during that year.
Yeah. One thing that's obviously different about playing in Minnesota than Milwaukee or Northern Illinois is just the crowd sizes and everything. Playing Big Ten basketball, you're pretty much, at the top of the college game. Going, to places like Michigan, Michigan State, Wisconsin, places like that. Did you ever, feel like you were like kind of getting caught up in the moment of the big crowds or anything? How did you stay grounded in those situations?
Well, so one, at Milwaukee, we played in some of those big games, and we were an older team, so like we went to know like it. Once I got to the Big Ten, it wasn't new because I had already came to Minnesota and beat Minnesota when I played for Milwaukee. When I was at Milwaukee, we beat Wisconsin at Wisconsin, So it wasn't really a difference for me. Obviously, having it night in and night out was a transition, but staying grounded for me was just knowing I prepared for the moment. My work was the kind of thing that gave me my confidence. Just knowing that I was ready for every moment. If I made shots in practice, I was good. So, I think that's how I stayed grounded. My confidence kind of came from God first, but just my work, the work I put in. I knew the hours I had put in, and I knew guys weren't willing to do that. So I stepped on every stage thinking that I was the best guy on the court regardless because I knew how hard I worked.
Yeah. And I think even, to kind of add on to that, even though you played the teams at, Milwaukee and whatever, one thing that I wanted to highlight as well is playing the Big Ten Conference tournament when you guys played Michigan State. Was it still, you had the same mindset going into something like that? Because, a Big Ten Conference tourney, it's the same team, but it's a different environment still.
Yeah, that was different. I will say the Big Ten tournament was different, but there's so many factors that played into making it different for me. One, it was the Big Ten tournament, so that was my first major conference tournament. It was way different from the previous conference. But what made that so huge for me was not only was it the Big Ten conference, Michigan State was the last team on my list of Big Ten teams that I needed to beat to beat every team in the Big Ten. So that added to it. It was my birthday.
Yeah.
So that was the game, and it's funny that I got injured that day. But that was the game for me. I had to take a step back to take it in. But how I did that is, and this is what I did in big games. So I would always, if it was a huge game during warm-ups, I would have to dance. And I wouldn't focus too much on shooting, but I would have to dance and find my comfort level. And I would just I was always, locked in, but I had to do something to get myself comfortable and remember, it's just another game. It's just another game at the end of the day, like the lights and stuff and the people that's in here. Hey, this is good. Wizards, come talk to me. I got hurt on your court, but that's what I did in games like that. So yeah, the Big Ten tournament was definitely one. I think that was the only time that I felt a real need to, Keem, okay, take a step back, look at the moment, see that the moment we're in, and get your head mentally ready for it. But I don't know, big games like that, I think for good players, the games like that are just more, they're more fun to play in as opposed to when I was in Horizon, especially when we were building, like the first year that I was there, the year I had to redshirt, there weren't a lot of fans, and it's hard to get excited for those games sometimes, but in the Big Ten, it's not hard to get excited for these games because at the end of the day, it's a bunch of people here watching. It's a bunch of people
national broadcast, even sometimes ESPN or CBS or whatever.
Exactly. So good athletes love stages like that. They love the bigger stages. It's hard to play in small stages, and that's something I even see in the G League. Like, I study NBA basketball, and some G League games, it's like, this is hard to get ready for. This is a hard game to get ready for. I know it's like basketball and stuff like that, and that's kind of some of my thoughts with playing overseas. If you're not playing, it's not the same as playing on the biggest stage, So for me, it was I don't know, like if I'm helping you, but I'm giving you the truth. With stuff. But I think that's common in the best athletes. There's a term like bright lights, and when the bright lights are on, I think the best players tend to like those environments better,
Yeah. It was, I know you mentioned that you still study the game a lot. I think I even saw some posts that you put out that you're kind of breaking down some defenses, I think. How much time do you take, or how much emphasis do you put on the mental side of the game, learning, basketball IQ? Because, somebody like Vince Carter, he's 42 and he's not physically, where he is 20 years ago, whatever, but his mental IQ is so high that he can still play at a high level.
And you see it with guys like that. And as you get older, some guys the game never slows down for them. But you see the guys who really study the game because the game slows down for them, and they start to see plays like a Chris Paul. What makes Chris so good, and I know he kind of had a hard time, but what makes Chris so good is the game seems so slow to him. Like, when he makes a pass, he's like, I knew I was making this pass when I came up the court, So for me, the emphasis on the mental side of the game is huge. It's huge for me. Studying the game, I ask a lot of questions and just get different perspectives, as opposed to some players who's like, I'm just working on my game. I gotta be able to do all the moves. And it's like, yeah, you gotta have that, but the game starts to slow down once you really look at the different scenarios and you're watching game film. So this might be a good one for you, as when you talk about gradually building up to something. If players can step back and really watch game film and watch the moments and watch the situations and see the gym. Like, I like to visualize the gym, and you can see the gym, and you can see the refs, and you can see the bad calls that they might make, because each one of their calls is on perception. It's on like what they saw from their point of view. But seeing all that stuff, I think that's something that can help, because it helps me. So just being able to have that, once you get to the situation, I'm not shocked by the situation because I've studied it so much, and I feel that that's the idea with game film. But how many players really take game film serious? The best ones, I think they take it super seriously. Like, the best defenders in the league, I remember, who was this? Who did he say? Our strength and conditioning coach was used to be the strength and conditioning. When I was in Minnesota, our strength and conditioning coach, Sean Brown, was on staff for the Heat for a while. And he was telling me about some guard who was like super good on defense, but he's like, he watched the players' tendencies, he watched everything, and he was a really good defender. I cannot think of his name, but he said I remind him of him, kind of thing. So what is his name? Anyway, but yeah, so just being able to see the moment before it happens, is why the mental side is so important to me, because if you're in it, you can literally talk yourself through some stuff. Like, why I'm so vocal on defense and why I post the defensive stuff is, if I've seen this on camera however X number of times, when I get in the game, it's literally like, okay, well, we know what's going to happen now. He came down here. He's going to come off this screen coming, you're steps ahead if you can put a true emphasis on the mental side of it.
Yeah, and I think even when athletes are going through long-term injuries like you did with your Achilles injury, that's, besides the physical rehab and getting ready to get back into game shape, the mental side of it, studying film and stuff like that, talking to people, learning from others, that's something that athletes can really focus on when they're injured to still, keep their athletic, IQ high
Yes.
when they're time away from the game.
Athletic IQ and just their body. The mind is so powerful, man. If you're hurt and you're still seeing yourself do all these things, you at least remember mentally how to do them. I see a lot of athletes when they get hurt, they're not watching film, and the process isn't about healing the whatever was injured. That's going to heal. If you take your steps to heal, that's going to heal. The mental side is, I think, what holds athletes back from fully recovering sometimes, because these months that you're out, you not only didn't put your body through the motion, you didn't put your mind through the motion. So you got to teach your mind now to go through these motions,
Yeah, yeah. One thing I wanted to ask before I let you go, I know that you were at Minnesota for the 1 year under Richard Pitino, obviously son of Rick Pitino. You got any funny Richard Pitino stories, or maybe a story that sticks out to you that you still think back and laugh at?
I got two for you. One, so Coach P, I started to call him Lil P and Big P. So one, Coach Big P, he called me when I was really serious about, like, no, man, I'm out of Minnesota. He called me. He was like, listen. He was like, stay. He was like, stay. He's like, you're going to help them do big things this year. Just stay. I mean, he said some other stuff that I won't go into, but that was the first thing. And he was just so calm. And
does he have a thick Boston accent too?
Yeah, and this is the guy, like, I'm a basketball fan. This is the guy growing up watching, like, Blue Chips and stuff like that, so, like, this is kind of big for me. But that was the one. And the second one is so he would come to practices, and Coach P he's a player's coach. I love Coach P. There's nothing, I don't have anything negative to say about Coach Lil P. As a coach, he was great. He's definitely a player's coach. I'm always recruiting for Minnesota. He's a great coach. But one time at practice, and this is not a but to that statement, but one time we were at practice, and Coach P is the voice at practice. When he speaks, stop talking. I'm talking about Lil P. And it was super cool when his father was in the gym to see Coach P's talking. His father's like, Richie. He's like, hold on, I got it. And we're all in the gym like, shut like what? But you just see the hierarchy, and that was cool. But the last one is, I remember we were playing Michigan at home, and we ended up winning this game. But I don't think I made a three in the first half, and I ended up picking it up in the second half. I don't know. I know I at least made one, because after the game, he came and he's like, look, he's like, if I fly to a game, make a three in the first half. He's like, if I decide to take my jet to a game, make a three in the first half. I'm like, and it was cool. He's like, no, man, I'm giving you a hard time. Good win and stuff like that. And he was like, man, I told you you're going to be a big part of this team. And that's one of the memories that sticks with me about Coach P. So I love both of them, Big and Little P. I love both of them. I really appreciate what they were for me at Minnesota, and to this day, Coach Pitino, the one who Coach Lil P. That's the easiest way to do it.
Lil and Big P.
Yeah, exactly. So Lil P, still to this day, he's we have conversations, and he knows I'm a Gopher fan. I'm a Gopher fan, supporter. I know I was only there for a year, but they embraced me so much. And so I'll give you that about the transition. The fans at Milwaukee were amazing, but the Big Ten, the Minnesota fans, oh man. To this day, even like with my music, and I'm just starting to release stuff now, but they're like, Keem drop music. It's like
Yeah.
it's huge for them. So I love the Gopher fans. But yeah, so those are my stories about Big P.
Yeah, that's gotta feel amazing knowing that you still, a couple years removed from Minnesota and the fans still love you. That's gotta be, almost an unexplainable feeling of how well that feels.
Yeah, for sure. Even when I got hurt that year, when I got hurt, I remember we came back to the hotel. There were so many fans just there, like they're crying. I didn't cry until Selection Sunday, but like after I got injured, I never cried or anything. But there are fans, small kids, everyone's there. They're lined up in the hotel. They're like, Akeem, thank you so much. We feel so bad. Small, like little kids are coming up to me crying, like, oh, we feel so bad. And I'm like, oh man, y'all gonna make me cry now. It's like, but that just like goes to show like how much love the Minnesota fans show.
Thanks, guys, again for checking out this episode. If you enjoyed any part of it, please share it with your friends and family, and I'll speak to you next time.